The sun hung low in the sky, casting elongated shadows through the forum as Nero walked alongside Sporus, his arm draped possessively around the delicate figure. Citizens whispered amongst themselves, none daring to speak openly of the peculiar partnership. With each step Nero took, the whispers grew louder, feeding the narrative that had spread like wildfire. Years earlier, Nero had been besotted with Poppaea Sabina, but that obsession had ended in tragedy. Poppaea's death left a void in Nero's twisted heart, a void he sought to fill in a most unthinkable manner. Sporus, a youth of striking resemblance to Poppaea, was chosen to inhabit the role of Nero's lost wife. The emperor had commanded that the boy be castrated, an act of ultimate violation and control. Afterward, Sporus was adorned in the finest raiment, jewels glistening upon his form as a constant reminder of his transformation from boy to living tribute. For Sporus, life had become a performance of survival, a chilling reality dictated by the whims of Rome's most feared ruler. Beneath the false smiles and regal appearance lay an unyielding spirit, refusing to wholly succumb to Nero's tyranny. There were whispered tales of Sporus's intelligence and resilience, qualities that endeared him to even Nero's staunchest adversaries. Each appearance with Nero was a theatrical display, an emperor and his bride amid the grandeur of the imperial court. Despite public scrutiny, Sporus played his part flawlessly, hiding the internal turmoil beneath a veil of practiced poise. To many, he was a symbol of human endurance, thriving amidst despair with dignity and grace. Nero's psychosis deepened with every passing year. His demands grew more erratic, and his fascination with Sporus knew no bounds. An infamous incident unfolded when Nero forced Sporus to accompany him to Greece during a lavish tour. The journey was rife with decadence, Nero displaying Sporus to nobles and commoners as the epitome of Roman culture and loyalty. Yet, not even Sporus's tragic semblance to Poppaea could cloak the deterioration of Nero's mind. The emperor indulged in wild theatrics, a conflation of myth and reality that blurred his perspective of the world around him. In one moment of delusion, Nero orchestrated a mock wedding ceremony, an extravagant pageant where Sporus, dressed as a bride, was given a ring amidst applause from his deluded court. The tale of Sporus is one of vulnerability caught in the web of imperial delusion. Nero's affections were but shackles, chains wrought from grief and obsession. Sporus's silent resistance against such depredation became a legacy, inspiring reflections and debates within Rome's intellectual circles. When Nero's reign ended abruptly in 68 AD, waves of relief washed over the empire. The people rejoiced as his iron grip faltered, plunged into the chaos of his own making. Sporus, along with many others, found freedom in the aftermath, though haunted by the role he was forced to play in Nero's twisted theater. After Nero's demise, Sporus disappeared into relative obscurity, his story fading as the empire struggled against its adversities. Nevertheless, the name Sporus lingered, a poignant reminder of strength under unimaginable coercion. Thus, in recounting Sporus' saga, one finds a tale that transcends time, a narrative of fortitude within the darkest chapters of human history. His story challenges each listener to examine the boundaries of power and the innate spirit that compels one to endure against adversity. Through these ancient voices echoes a profound truth. Even amidst history's darkest corners, the resilience of the human spirit shines unyielding and brightly. Nero, the Emperor of Rome, was a man who commanded authority and power beyond measure. Revered as a god in the eastern provinces, He directed the might of 30 legions and could order death with a mere word. Yet, despite his vast control, there was one person Nero cherished, Poppaea, his beloved. The day she died is described in ancient texts as heartbreaking and pitiful. Nero threw himself onto Poppaea's lifeless body, alternating between begging for her forgiveness and demanding her to live, as if his imperial power could challenge the inevitability of death. In a frantic attempt to save her, he summoned Rome's foremost physicians, offering them great wealth should they succeed, and threatening their lives should they fail. Alas, it was to no avail. Poppaea died within hours, taking with her their unborn child. That tragic event unhinged Nero's fragile psyche. His grief was profound, beyond normal mourning. It was a descent into madness. Refusing to cremate Poppaea according to Roman custom, he had her body embalmed and placed in a tomb more grandiose than any before. Her seat remained empty at banquets, and any suggestion of moving on invited exile or worse. Amidst this turmoil, Nero's attention fell upon Sporus. Young, likely no more than 15, Sporus had been born into slavery within the imperial household and later freed, a relatively privileged existence for someone of his status. Despite being a freedman, whose lot in life was better than many freeborn citizens, he was susceptible to the whims of imperial favor, which allowed great rise, but also left one exposed to sudden punishment. What caught Nero's attention wasn't Sporus's intelligence or aptitude, but his uncanny resemblance to Poppaea. Roman culture embraced the notion that physical likeness could reflect a spiritual connection, and Sporus's delicate features and eyes bore an eerie similarity to the late empress. Their likeness seemed ethereal to Nero, whose grieving mind imagined a bizarre chance at reincarnation, a below-ordinary spirit returning. There was a complication. Sporus was male, but to Nero, a man who fancied himself a god, changing someone's gender was but a trivial hindrance. He saw Sporus as a vessel for Poppaea's spirit, prompting one of history's greatest acts of cruelty. Nero didn't simply require Sporus to dress as a woman. He commanded the most drastic alteration to his being. Roman physicians were tasked to permanently transform Sporus, an intervention that erased his identity, defying natural boundaries. The surgical process, primitive and dangerous, occurred in the palace's darkened chamber. Sporus, restrained by guards, endured hours of excruciating pain with rudimentary tools and little to numb the anguish. Despite the immense risk of infection or blood loss, often leading to death, Sporus survived. Even so, his life was irrevocably transformed. He would never become a father, forge normal bonds, or be fully recognized as male within Roman society. Once recovered, Nero made a startling declaration. He would wed Sporus in a lavish ceremony, akin to royal matrimony. At the wedding, Sporus was renamed Sabina, assigned quarters for his transition into the female role. Seamstresses worked tirelessly to create garments flattering his altered form. Jewelers crafted pieces with gems, once adorning Poppaea, transforming Sporus into the woman he wasn't. Daily routines involved cosmetics like rouge and kohl to feign feminine charm, while expert stylists applied elaborate hairstyles using heat tools and precious ornaments. Most unsettling were the lessons in ladylike demeanor. Educators rigorously trained Sporus to walk, sit, and speak with refined decorum, something arduous given the ingrained nature of vocal habits. Facing these changes meant daily confronting a reflection that ceased to represent him. Each moment spent as Sabina was a reminder of the identity stripped away by Nero's obsessions. In mirrors and jewels once belonging to Poppaea, Sporus faced an unrelenting chain tethering him to a fate he never chose. In the spring of 67 AD, Rome was abuzz with an impending spectacle, the wedding of Emperor Nero. It was aligned perfectly with the religious festivals of the season, intended to showcase the grandeur and the opulence worthy of its most powerful ruler. The Grand Hall of the Imperial Palace was a sight to behold, festooned with exotic flowers and illuminated brilliantly by an array of oil lamps. It was the epitome of traditional Roman grandeur, with music resonating through its corridors and lavish feasts prepared for a night of celebration. To the unwitting outsiders, this was merely an imperial celebration indicative of Nero's reign. However, those in closer proximity to the emperor understood the bizarre truth. At the heart of this event was Sporus, a teenage boy surgically altered to resemble Poppaea, Nero's deceased wife. The ceremony followed every Roman ritual, a facade that included vows, the symbolic joining of hands, sharing sacramental bread, and the signing of legal documents. Guests played their part with meticulously practiced smiles, offering congratulations and lavish gifts. Yet beneath the veneer lay unease, a potent blend of horror and morbid curiosity. Post-wedding, Nero installed Sporus with all the bearings of a true empress. Endowed with a household staff, royal quarters within the palace, and a steady treasury income, Sporus lived amid luxurious confines. He possessed the means to travel, ride, and entertain a retinue of attendants. Yet these regal privileges came at an unimaginable cost: the erasure of his own identity and the constant performance of a soul-crushing role. Sporus accompanied Nero to every public event, seated beside him at state dinners, embodying the role of a devoted wife. Nero, seemingly convinced he had resurrected Poppaea, addressed him by her name, reliving memories they never shared, forcing responses to uphold this grand deception. For Sporus, every moment was high stakes, where even the slightest infraction could lead to deadly consequences. He was immersed in a fabricated past, evoking memories from a marriage never his own. Ancient sources recount how Sporus became a masterful deceiver, developing an uncanny ability to interpret Nero's moods and react impeccably, although this brilliance came at a personal cost. Withdrawn and melancholic, he was the epitome of perfection in public, yet lived within a psychological abyss. Daily, he awakened in rooms reminiscent of a woman he never knew, saw strangers in his reflection, and engaged in conversations as another being. For over 2 years, Sporus persevered through this surreal existence. His predicament intensified when Nero embarked on a tour of Greece, eager to exhibit his artistic prowess in the festivals. Sporus joined him, put forth as Rome's empress. The sight of their conqueror presenting a boy as his wife required Greek nobles to maintain this facade amidst the absurdity. By 68 AD, Nero's indulgences reached their threshold, compelling Rome's elite to foster rebellion. Distaste for his erratic rule led governors to revolt, with even the Senate and Praetorian Guard turning against him. Labeled an enemy of the state, Nero fled Rome with Sporus among his small entourage, unable to part with his living memory of Poppaea. They found refuge in a villa outside Rome, mired in plans for escape or impending capture. With enemies closing in, faced with choices that veer between heroics and humiliation, Nero chose death over capture. Nero's demise left Sporus exposed, an emblem of the fallen regime, a paradox of value and danger. Passed among the powerful, he became a pawn, dressed as a woman and called Poppaea by each new keeper, including Nymphidius Sabinus, Otho, and finally Vitellius. Under Vitellius, he faced his ultimate horror, a public humiliation in the Colosseum, forced to reenact violent, disparaging mythological scenes. Rather than endure this ultimate indignity, Sporus took his fate into his own hands. Likely through poison, he ended his life in 69 AD, a mere 20 years old. In death, Sporus eluded the grotesque theater of his life, a tragic yet final act of defiance reclaiming agency over his path. Sporus' story ascended as a cautionary tale, a narrative warning against the perils of absolute power and the human toll imparted by imperial excess. Ancient historians remembered him as an emblem of decadence, yet the essence of his story lies in profound cruelty and resilience, a reflection on human identity stripped bare. A tragedy hampered by historical obscurity, Sporus' earlier life reveals little. His dreams, ambitions, wiped clean with the transformation thrust upon him. His existence morphed into a continuous act, a performance eradicating traces of his true self. The poignant story of the boy forced into emperor status, living through dehumanizing years and choosing death over humiliation, demands remembrance, not as a Roman novelty, but as a testimony to brutality and fortitude. In finality, Sporus' choice was the reclamation of his lost liberty, demonstrating a yearning for self-determination that transcended time. It serves as a solemn reminder that beneath the veneer of imperial grandeur lives untold stories of pain and survival, worthy of empathy and reflection.